All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Well Society. We are continuing on with our Refiners Fire series. This is our last episode in this summer series, and I'm so excited today to have my friend Paige Neighbors with us. And she is you're going to love her accent. I know I do. But she is a wonderful mom of three. One daughter was born with HLHS, and she's going to explain that here in just a minute. She currently has two children under 3 years old. She is happily married to her husband of 5 years. They live in Lebanon, Tennessee. And that's where that accent's going to come from that you're going to love here in just a minute. She loves coffee, spending time with her family, going to church, camping, and traveling when they have extra time. So, Paige, thank you so much for being here with us today. So tell us, how long have you been in Tennessee? Your whole life?
I've been my whole life.
Oh,
I lived in Nashville and then I moved out to Lebanon because Nashville's getting overpopulated. So we're kind of getting put out of Nashville.
oh, yeah. And I was telling you earlier today, I was in Nashville this weekend, and the last time I was there was 20 something years ago, and it has definitely gotten a lot busier since I was last there.
Yes. A lot of people say that they don't ever see real Nashville people downtown. And somebody's like, well, we don't hang out downtown. That's why you don't see the Nashville natives.
Yeah, you're all out. Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool. Now how do you take your coffee?
I have half and half, and then I also like using skinny syrups. So it's a sugar free, and they have all kinds of flavors.
Do you try different flavors, or do you have a favorite?
I try different flavors.
Different flavors, yeah.
I think I
I
had
still
like
have.
white chocolate this morning.
Ooh, yum. I've got my coffee still right here from this morning. Haven't finished it yet. Now that it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's all right. I didn't finish mine either. Okay.
That's part of the territory, I think, of being a mom. So
Yes. A lot of times we microwave
that's
it.
right. That's right. Oh, well, nice. Okay, well, tell us a little bit about this is the Refiners Fire series, and we just kind of jump right into things. So tell us a little bit about what life was like for you before you entered into the Refiners Fire. What was life like?
So life like for me was me and my husband knew we wanted to have more than one child, but we didn't know we were going to be blessed with two.
Mm.
Um, when I'm bringing it back like way before, but like when I first took that pregnancy test, I felt like God told me that everything was going to be okay. And I have a genetic disorder that I can pass down, and like I won't go into it, but there's like a 1 in 4 chance of a boy surviving. So I was like, okay, well, that's what he's talking about.
Mm.
Well, at my 20-week ultrasound, we found out that there was a problem, and I was already at a high risk. I was already a high risk patient because of twins. And the high risk doctor sent me to Vanderbilt because of they found a heart condition, and it's called HLHS, which is called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. So the left side of her heart was not fully developed. So before she was born, we were told that she was going to have 3 open heart surgeries her entire life, and there might be a chance of her having to have a heart transplant. So during that time, when I was pregnant, I was working at home. My job was still under that, I guess, COVID, everybody's still working from home type deal. So they were actually wanting me to come back into work in October, and I was like, there's no way. I'm delivering twins in December. I have what was she? They're 18 months apart. So 2-year old at home, and or she wasn't even two yet, but daycare I couldn't even do daycare is so expensive. And then I knew I was going to have one daughter in the hospital for an extended period of time. So I had to quit my job in October. And then um, during that time, I was holding on to what he told me when I first found out I was pregnant. that everything's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what got me through my entire pregnancy. When she was born, they literally took her and had to do whatever they needed to do to make sure she can breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she had her first open heart surgery probably a week or two old. And then during the time she was in the hospital, it was a lot of complications, a lot of procedures. And then she had her before. I'm holding on to it the entire time. So, come to find out, when it got closer to time of finding out that she was about to pass, um, it really wasn't the heart being an issue. It was her lymphatic system. They couldn't keep the fluid off of her lungs. She kept building fluid. She had to have a lot of draining tubes put in and out because they would drain it and then they would take them out and then they'd have to put them back in because they couldn't keep the fluid off. She was on a lot of diuretics, a lot of medication.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I felt like I knew everything was going to be fine. But in August, I had a feeling that she was going to come home. And I have not had a feeling like that the entire time we were in the hospital for almost 9 months. And I'm like, okay, well, she's going to come home.
So
And
when was she born?
she was born December 30th
So she was
of
born
2020.
December and she was in the hospital the whole time
Mhm.
until August?
Mhm.
Wow.
So like during that entire time, so my husband works nights and he didn't get to go as much as he would like. So that's what he's struggling with, of not
Mm-hmm.
having as much time with her. But I would get up in the morning. I would take my girls to my grandparents' house every morning because I couldn't take them to the hospital, or at least I couldn't take my oldest one. They would allow Lakeland, which is her twin, because she is a twin. And so sometimes I'd take Lakeland, sometimes I would leave her with my grandparents, and then I would go and spend maybe a couple hours, 2 to 4 hours there, and then I'd have to leave and come pick up my girls and do all the mom things at home too. So that was really hard juggling during that time.
Yeah. So you had 9 months well, first you have 9 months of growing twins
Mhm.
during the pandemic situation, deliver twins, one twin comes home, and then you have another daughter at home.
Mhm.
And then the other twin is in the hospital with a heart condition, but then at the same time you discover that there's a lymphatic
Mhm.
issue going on. Okay. And that's ultimately the lymphatic issue was the bigger issue, not the
Mhm.
heart issue.
Right.
Okay. And so then your husband at the same time, he's having to work to
Mhm.
provide for the family. So then now there's looking forward to this point, there's he didn't spend as much time with her as he
Right.
would have wanted
Because
to.
when we first when all of this first happened at the beginning, he would come to the hospital with me after he gets off work. Then he'd sleep for a certain amount of time at the hospital and then come back home. And he just didn't get enough sleep because him working nights and it's hard.
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
told him to stay home unless something's happening.
Sure. Yeah. Because he's got to sleep. Sure. So so God was telling you
Everything's gonna be okay.
everything's gonna be okay. And then you had the feeling that you were gonna get to bring her home. Okay. So August comes around and what happens in August?
So it was actually like I don't know when in August it was, if it was the beginning or the end, but I knew she was going to come home in September. I knew it. I knew there was a time. I knew, just had a feeling she would come home in September. Well, there was also a feeling, I believe, in August that I felt like she wasn't going to come home to me, but I didn't want to believe it. Or maybe it was earlier that I just didn't want to believe that she wasn't going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
I had a feeling, and I didn't listen. I didn't listen to God like I was probably
Yeah.
supposed to, but held on to that feeling that everything was going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I felt like she was coming home in September, then I was like, okay, well, everything's supposed to be going up from here. Um, while she was in the hospital, there was a couple of times that she's coded. And there was one time that it was actually Memorial Day weekend. They were thinking of having to put her on, what's it called? I forgot what it's called. Bypass. It's a
Mm-hmm.
bypass.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's strong. She went through, she pushed through, and she didn't get put on bypass. And I don't think it's called bypass. I think it's almost like life support. There's a name for it, and I can't remember. But
Okay.
she didn't get put on life support. She pushed through it, and
Oh, the ventilator.
the thing that pumps, it's like they open your chest with the heart, like they pump the heart
Gotcha. I know what
for
you're talking
you.
about.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called either, but I got what you're talking about. Yeah. The thing that does the thing. Yep. I
Yes.
follow you. I follow you. Okay. But she didn't have to be put on that.
Mhm.
Okay.
But yeah, that was just me holding on to the fact that everything was going to be okay, and then the fact that I knew she was going to come home.
Yeah.
That was basically how everything happened before it started going downhill.
Yeah. So did she ever come home?
No.
No. Yeah. Okay. So what was that experience like when she passed away?
So in September, it was on a Wednesday, we had a meeting with the care team. Or no, before, okay, take that back. Before then, we were talking about seeing if she was eligible for a heart transplant.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our next step because they weren't getting anywhere. She's been in there for 9 months, or almost 9 months, and they had nothing else to do. And her body was weak, that she did not she was not eligible for a heart transplant. And then Wednesday in September, I don't remember the date. We had a care meeting, and they said that we can't do anything else for her. And that was hard. That was hard to hear because I believed that everything was going to be okay. And so that Wednesday was when we found out. Well, that weekend is when we had like all family come. They said they kind of lifted all of the rules and let family come and visit because we didn't know how much longer she was going to be here. And the time from just that Wednesday until Sunday, she changed drastically. The pictures that I have, and like even seeing her, it wasn't her. And I don't know, it was a hard decision on Sunday, that was the 18th in September. So the 18th, it was a Sunday, and I actually had my preacher and an elder come and do a baby dedication because I was like, I want to have them be able to do the baby dedication in our church together.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was we did a recording. I think it even happened before the 18th, but that's the day of baby dedication. We did a recording, and they showed it at church on the 18th of her getting dedicated, and also her twin Lakeland getting dedicated. So I wanted to say real quick that before, I know I'm going backwards, but before I found out, or right when I found out that she had HLHS, I had a feeling I needed to name her Idle Faith. Now, I didn't know what the other one was going to be. I didn't know what Lakeland's name was going to be, but I was like so determined, this is Idle Faith. So I felt like God put that on my heart to name her Idle Faith. But the day of the 18th, during the day, the nurses were like, I'm like, we haven't even talked about life support. Like, why are we thinking that she's not going to make it? And they said, well, she's on a form of life support. And I didn't realize that, because when they kept telling me, well, Adeline's doing good. Adeline's doing good for her, but she's not doing good for the average normal babies. So I was taking it, okay, well, she's doing great. She's doing better. But that was not the case. During the day on the 18th, we took her outside for the first time. They let us carry her. Of course, they had to like bring all of her little cords and everything. Took her outside for the first time. Noelle, her oldest sister, was wanting to show her the fish outside. Like, Noelle only met her once before all of this happened, and then of course that weekend she was there more. So Noelle didn't, her oldest sister didn't see her almost the entire time that she was there. She only saw her once before, and then that whole weekend. But they were trying to talk me into, they didn't really talk me into, but they were trying to suggest that if she's not getting better, then why sit here? Why continue if we can't do anything? So we made this decision to, on the 18th, to let it be basically her last day, which is the hardest thing a parent should never have to go through. So we had my parents take my girls, take Lakeland and Noelle. They said their goodbyes, and then we took them home. And then me and Zach came back, and I told him, I said, I feel like we're just coming back to the hospital for our baby to die. Like, that's what it is. And after they took her off the medications, or before they took her off the medications, we had time with her and we took our time or whatever. And I felt like I was trying to get an okay from Zach, my husband, to say, okay, let's just win your medicine. Like, let's go ahead and stop her medicine and everything. And they told us once they weaned her off, they said, let me know whenever she starts feeling uncomfortable. And before she even started crying, because I was holding her, I knew she was feeling uncomfortable. So all I was doing there was sitting there, rocking her back and forth and telling her it's going to be okay. The time from Zach telling them that she's not comfortable, that they were going to do another medicine to make her comfortable, because that was my biggest thing. I didn't want her to hurt. And the time Zach did that and the time they actually brought the medicine, it felt like forever. I'm sitting here thinking, why did they not have the medicine at the door?
Yeah.
And I don't think they expected her to go that quickly. But once they gave her the medicine, she calmed down. And even before her heartbeat was gone, I felt like she was already gone. Like, I even told the doctors, I'm like, she's not here. She's not here. And of course, they're like, we can't call it until there's not a heartbeat. But I just felt like she wasn't there. And once she was gone, I mean, yes, it's sad, and I was crying. And I mean, I didn't realize I was going to sit there and hold I'm sorry, but my dead baby, because I held her afterwards, because you don't want to let her go. But I felt a sigh of relief, because I felt like I was so tense on not wanting to let her go before we made the decision. And then once she was gone, I felt that relief off my shoulders that I did the right thing. But once they were cleaning her up and everything, I felt like I heard God tell me, actually, I know, God told me thank you. So I did what he was supposed to, what I was supposed to. And um, I also felt like I heard Adeline tell me, I'm okay, Mama. So that's what I hold on to because, I mean, she's better than okay. Even if she stayed alive, she's a lot better than what she would do here. So it was really
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. And, you know, the message here that I was going to ask you, and you kind of answered it as you're,
Sorry.
no, you're fine. No, it's good. That God told you the whole time it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And as human beings, we can get so fixed on what we think that means. And God, it still is okay.
Yeah.
His, it's going to be okay, just looks different than what maybe you had made it up in your mind at that time.
Right.
You know, because as twin moms, when you're pregnant with twins and you go through all that, what we think is going to be okay is we think, oh, we're going to deliver babies and we're going to come home and they're going to have this little twin bond and they're going to go through life and it's going to be this like Sweet Valley twin situation. When God's it's going to be okay might look that way, but it might look totally different. But his it's going to be okay is better than our it's going to be okay.
Right. I mean, even during the time I was like, I knew God could make miracles. And when they were sitting here telling me that she couldn't make it, I'm like, God, I know you can do miracles. Show these doctors that they're wrong. I hate to say that, but that they're wrong. Because I mean, God can heal if it's his will. And that's what I was hoping for, but that's not what he wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes we can get tripped up in believing that our will is better than his will. And that's, you know, when you're in that refiner's fire, that's where people can start to go the way that's not following God, where they can start to stay in that anger and that sadness. Because you're right, like what you said, like, of course it's sad. Your child passed away in your arms, and a twin, which moms of multiples know, and even moms of non-multiples can understand to a degree, like twins and multiples, there's something very different about it.
Right.
It's sad. It's sad. And there's a layer of anger that comes with that too. But and I forgot where I was going with this.
It's okay.
But the direction. So we can stay in that anger. Like we can stay in that anger. We could choose to stay in that sadness. And that's the refiner's fire. You know, we could choose to stay in that place, or we can choose to allow the Lord to work through that pain and work through that sadness and to work through the tears and allow the tears to fall and then come out a more refined Christian on the other side. So how did you move through, and what were some tools that helped you to move through the sadness, the anger, the grief that you're still living in? It doesn't ever really go away. You just incorporate it into your life. So what keeps you moving through the fire so you don't stay in an unhealthy place with those emotions?
I would say my girls, my daughters, and I mean, I'm still working through it because it was just, I don't even know how many months I stopped counting, but it hasn't even been a year yet. And I can tell that my anger that I have, I've put it towards my girls, and they don't, like, I've watched myself, like, I know what I need to do. I've noticed, like, I mean, I don't know, just the simplest things. And my girls are the reason why I push through. And my church family, they helped out a lot after she passed. One of the people at my church told me, and I didn't think of this. She said, "You said Adeline was going to come home," and she said she did come home. She just didn't come to my home. So when God told me that she was going to come home, well, I was like we think our way. We think she's going to come home and we're going to be fine. but that's not what he wanted. That's not what that wasn't his will.
Yeah.
And my aunt has actually helped a lot too. She lost a daughter when not younger, but maybe I think 16 years ago. I don't even remember how, but she's helped me a lot, and she's been great to talk to.
Yeah. So finding that community, that supportive, positive
Right.
community
Mm-hmm.
that can help you through things. Yeah. And it's so humbling too when we're like, yeah, like you're saying, yeah, she's coming home. My God, everything's gonna be
Yeah.
okay. And then God's like, and then we remember it totally redirects us back. And there's a scripture, and I'm gonna butcher it if I don't pull it up and read it exactly as it's written. There's scripture, and I lean on this scripture frequently. In 2 Corinthians 12:8-10, it's about Paul and his own afflictions. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast, Paul is saying, therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in my weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties, for when I am weak, then I am strong.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like saying, we're pleading with God, like, oh, can I bring her home? And I'm going to bring her home and everything's going to be all right. And God says, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, Paige, like my grace is enough. Like, that's all you need.
Right.
All
I
you
had a friend, after she passed, I don't know how long it was, but she invited me to this Bible study. And we go every Wednesday, which we're at the end of it, but we started not far after she passed, but she's maybe it was, I don't know when it was, but anyways, she invited me to a Bible study, and I take my girls, and my girls are in Bible study, and she's helped me because, I mean, having that group of women that you gather around, I said, even though I don't say anything, or sometimes I don't even do the devotion, because there's been times, and I'm still trying to get through this, that I don't want to have anything to do with him. And it's hard. And I know the right things, and I know what to do. And it's just, I don't know if anybody would really understand unless you go through a loss, that it's hard. Because if you sit here and think, well, everything's going to be okay, and that's not the way he wanted, but still it's like, why did you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you have me go through this? I mean, I've even had times that I'm like, okay, well, wouldn't it have been easier if if she was a miscarriage, or if I just had one baby? Like, it just, things go through your head. And then like um so she ended up having the genetic disorder that I have, and so she also had that on top of the heart thing and everything. And she had an eye procedure done, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, could we have waited on the eye procedure for, maybe that would have helped? Like, all the things go through your head that you're like, okay, well, did we do the second heart surgery too early? Did we do this too early? Did we make this mistake? But if God wanted her to be here, she would have been here, no matter what type of decisions I would have made,
Yeah.
if it was his plan.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm hearing you say, and I think this is a really important point, is grief is not something we master.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that, as a human, that we have thoughts that are going to populate. We just get better at putting them in their proper container.
Right.
And as long as we're alive on this earth, we're going to have thoughts, because we're fallen humanity, because of
Mm-hmm.
Adam and Eve. We're going to continue to have thoughts that populate, that are not helpful, that are of our flesh, that are, Jesus on the cross. Why did you forsake me? I mean, we can take it back to
Right.
Jesus, the perfect human being. So we know that we're going to have these kinds of thoughts. And logically, we know that, okay, well, it was not her time, but that doesn't take away the fact that we still have those emotional thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's important to, like what you're doing, to recognize that we have those thoughts and to know that, okay, well, I'm having this thought, not to stuff it down.
Mm-hmm.
To recognize, okay, well, where's this coming from? Why am I thinking this? And now what do I need to do with it?
Right.
And so thank you for sharing that. I'm saying that to say thank you for sharing that, because that is going to give some other mom or dad who might be listening to this permission to say, okay, I'm not the only one who thinks that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. And so now what do you do when you have those thoughts, when you're like, I don't really want to have this conversation with God right now? When you're feeling those feelings and you're having those thoughts, what do you do to kind of turn it around?
What I go back to is that everything that he told me, that everything was going to be okay, and also him telling me thank you, and hearing Adeline tell me I'm okay, Mama. And I just, I don't know. I've always had this. I mean, I've had it since I was in college, but I got a tattoo that says faith on my ankle. And the genetic disorder that I have, I am legally blind in my right eye without contacts. So what that means to me is, I have it written down so I don't forget, but it's the verse, 2 Corinthians 5:7, that we walk by faith and not by sight. And what I remember whenever those thoughts come up is that God knows exactly how I feel. He lost his perfect son from everything that we've done, and he had to sit there. I mean, he didn't have to, but he wanted to save his people. He wanted, I don't know how to word it correctly, but
Hmm.
he watched his perfect child die. People that um treated him horribly, and it's just, he didn't deserve it. And it reminds me that God knows exactly what I'm going through, and he knows my feelings. I mean, I'm sure God felt anger. I'm sure God was sad. I mean, all the feelings that you have through grief and through watching something happen, he knows those feelings. He understands. And if you take it to him, it makes it better. I mean, I've noticed days that I don't come to him, I mean, like I said, I'm still working on it, but those days that I don't come to him, I have a more stressful day. I am tense. Everything just bothers me. And then when I actually have devotion time and spend time with him, it just changes the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
And it just amazes me that one time that you spend with him, I mean, even if you've had so many bad days, the one time that you spend with him, he can change it real quick, the way that your day is.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And you go back to the emotions. If we believe in a God that created the universe and created the stars and the sky and all the human beings and all that, then who created emotions? So who knows them better than anybody else?
Right. Right.
And we believe that he created our innermost being in our mother's womb, which it says so in scripture. Then, who knows better than anybody? It's God.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today. Are there any particular scriptures? I know you shared some, but are there any other scriptures that you lean on to help you when you're feeling overwhelmed with grief?
Sorry, I didn't. We were
Sorry.
paused.
Yeah, I think we
It's
got
okay.
some. My kids are coming home and their internet. Are there
Okay.
any other verses that you lean on when you are feeling particularly overwhelmed with grief?
I'm trying to think. I have 1 Corinthians 16:13, and it says, "Stand firm in the faith, be courageous, and be strong." So, like, if you stand firm in your faith, then you can get through whatever you're going through, no matter if it's grief, no matter if it's, I mean, the simplest thing. If you just stand with your faith and you really just open your eyes and eyes to see and your ears to hear him, you will hear what he has to say and you will see what he's doing, even though you might, like I said, not understand. It might not be your way.
Yeah.
But that's what, just stand firm in my faith. And that's what I was hoping whenever he saved my life.
Hmm.
And it just blows my mind. I mean, yes, I sit here and say, well, it would be easier if she wasn't here. Well, the thing is, her whole 8 months or 9 months, she changed people's lives without knowing it. So the times that we go through hard times, well, God's changing somebody else's life, even though you might not see the hard, because you're going through a hard time yourself.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Exactly. We don't ever know how far it's going to reach,
right.
for sure.
And my husband even said, um, he told me maybe a couple months ago, Adeline was our faith, and then Lakeland. Lakeland's middle name is Grace, and Lakeland's our Grace. So we had faith with Adeline, and that's the name I was wanting to call her. And then Grace came to me, and now we have Lakeland Grace. She's the grace that God's given us, that after all of this.
Yeah, to carry forward. It's beautiful. You're gonna make me cry again.
Don't cry.
Oh,
I won't cry.
oh, it's beautiful. And that's like the beauty in the ashes, and it says in scripture, the Lord restores the years that the locusts have destroyed. And it's like you're living in the bitter and the sweet, and it's just beautiful, and we can find the joy in the journey, and all
Right.
of that, and we'll all be together again one day.
And I will say, if anybody's going through grief, there will be a time that you will feel like you don't have any feelings. I was in that for a lot of, like, it's kind of like a haze. You're in a haze or in a fog. That's what my aunt calls it. And you just have to go through it, and it's okay. Like, I didn't cry at Adeline's funeral. I got up there and I spoke because I felt like I needed to speak, and I felt like the God wanted me to speak and say a couple of words, but I didn't cry. I don't know. I mean, it makes me feel bad that I didn't cry, but I'm okay that I didn't cry. And now, maybe a month ago, I've come out of that fog, and I've felt my emotions harder than normal. And my mom's even felt like that too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just something we have to go through.
Yeah, at your own pace and in your own way.
Mm,
Yeah.
right. Grief is not okay, well, this is when it's going to be over. It is a roller coaster, and you don't know when it's going to end. But grief, I don't think grief will ever end. I just think it'll somehow get easier, even though you might not think it gets easier.
Mm-hmm. You get better at coping with the
Hmm.
waves that come. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
And then, of
well,
course, something will always pop up and you don't realize that will trigger you. And it's okay to feel those feelings. It's okay to cry. I feel like a lot of the times I don't get to feel those feelings because I am a stay-at-home mom and I do all the things, and my husband works night shift, and the only time I have to myself is right before I go to bed after the girls go to sleep.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
Because you got to stay on to take
hmm
care of your family, for sure.
right.
Yeah. And it is important to find that time to
Hmm.
process. So that's something that I work on with my clients, is finding that time to take care of yourself,
Yes.
because as a daughter of Christ, that's our first role and responsibility, as being his daughter, and taking care of ourselves, and the rest
Right.
comes behind that. Our first role is to him and to honor him.
Correct.
So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And I know that your story is going to reach the right women to bless them and to help them. So, are there any other
Thank
closing
you.
thoughts you'd like to share with our ladies?
I would say And I know I've said this probably a lot during the time, but no matter what you're going through, God will pull you through it. And I know all you have to have is as little I'm trying to think of the way to say it. Um your faith can be as small as a mustard seed. And if you hold on to that faith and you everything's going to be okay. I'm going to sit here and tell you everything's going to be okay. Might not be your timing or you're okay, but everything will be okay. And just hold on to your faith and hold on to me telling you, God speaking through me telling you that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. And I believe that too. I echo what Paige is saying. So, oh. All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this Refiner's Fire series, and thank you, Paige, for joining us.
Thank you.